Alright guys, I've played 5 games of Rapid this morning, and interestingly every one of them turned out to feature the French. Now what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to show you all 5 games, that would take too long, but we were looking specifically at tactics, and I got a really interesting question in the comments yesterday from somebody saying, at what point do you, in your chess development, do you evolve from spotting simple tactics like that's a fork, that's a pin, that's a check, to these combinations where you get, if I do this, my opponent's going to have to do that, or they'll probably do that, and then once they do that, I can then follow up with this, right? And it's a really, really good question. I don't think there's a right answer to it, because I think fundamentally, if you take the view that chess is 99% tactics anyway, tactics is how you exert your will over your opponent. Tactics is how you get your opponent to do things they don't want to do, and it's how you improve your position, improve your structure, etc., right? So in a way, it's not really a question of at what point in your chess development. It's like improving at tactics is your chess development. It's one and the same thing. So anyway, I just thought it would be fun to look at one critical tactical position in each of these 5 games that I played today, because they've all got something to offer. So in this one, we'll go through no particular order. This one, I've got the black pieces, I've castled kingside. My opponent's just played c3 here to attack my bishop, and I move my bishop now back to e7. Okay, and now, if you notice, one of the problems with this move, I mean, I really don't have many options at all for this, because my bishop's under attack, right? Can't go there, can't go there, can't go there, because of this long dark square pawn chain of whites. So it's like I have to come back to here, but the problem with this is that I've put my queen there on f7, okay? And now my opponent plays a very natural knight to g5, okay? So the knight's attacking the queen, and there's also a discovered attack on the queen. So I can't, for example, just capture the knight with the bishop, right? The queen is going to have to move. It's in double attack, and one of those attacks is by a knight. So I move my queen now to e8, which is the only available square. And this is just a really nice kind of forcing sequence, right? Knight captures e6, and now this comes with an attack on my rook, but it's also attacking c7, and c7 happens to come with a 3-way fork on queen and rook and bishop. So very, very unpleasant situation. So at least I resolve one of the issues by swapping off rooks, and queen recaptures, and now I've still got this issue here, which is pressing, but there's again something that I missed. Okay, so I now play my bishop down to d8, and this seems to be the end of my problems, because my bishop's now defending this pawn, and now the knight can't take because the bishop just captures. Okay, I'm only down a pawn at this point, but now my opponent plays bishop takes d5, and what I should have spotted here, very, very straightforward tactic. Okay, so the bishop is x-raying the king. All right, the only piece in the way is the knight. So if the knight should move, the king will be in check. Okay, when the king's in check, it's the ultimate forcing move. You have to get out of check on the next turn. Therefore, if you're in attack here, you say to yourself, okay, well, how can I move my knight with a threat? Because I know that on my opponent's next turn, if I move that knight, he's got to deal with the check, right? So the natural thing is to move the knight with an attack, say, on the queen. So capture that, you're attacking the queen. Okay, now I missed that completely, and for some reason I chose to play rook b8, knight takes c7, king's in check. I can't even block with my queen because he's got queen takes, and it's time to resign. There you go. Simple discovered check with a double attack. Okay, classic tactics. All right, in this French, I have the black pieces, and I've just played my So in fact, we can go all the way from the start. This is pretty straightforward, right? Now here, my opponent plays c4 on the second move. Okay. Now d5, c takes d5, e takes, and pawn pushes forward. Okay. Now we're looking at this potential, for a queen to come out, but the f pawn's still there, so it doesn't come with check. Okay. I bring out my knight. Now d4 is played, and now I decide to bring out my queen. So I've got a couple of things going on. I've got the potential of a check here, but I've also now got two attackers on here. So this is a bit of a crazy queen attack, but it kind of works out all right. This is what you don't do in the face of like a wayward queen attack. You don't just try and kick the queen away. You have to pay attention to what's actually being under threat. So now queen to e4 check, and bishop to e3. Okay. So now what I do is I play my bishop out, pinning this knight against the queen. Okay. My opponent is rated mid-1300s. Now, it actually sent me a text message, sent me a message in the chat saying, haha, you've blundered the game, right? Which it very nearly looks like I have, because the bishop's guarding this diagonal, the queen can't go there, can't go anywhere else without being captured. However, here's another important tactical lesson for everybody, right? You are faced with an attack, you have a piece under attack, the piece cannot escape, okay? One of the things that we go over and over and over again is that when there is a threat, you usually have options. And one of the options is a counter-attack. Okay, so what can black do here to say, okay, I see you're attacking my queen, but am I bothered, right? Bishop takes f3, and now we have bishop attacking queen, right? So we have a standoff, and it's not so obvious now, right? If bishop takes queen, what, king takes and loses castling rights, and pawn takes, kind of equal. So we have pawn takes bishop, and now my queen escapes, okay? So I've just won a minor piece, white wins a minor piece, queen escapes out of that. Yeah, pretty straightforward. And the game carries on. Okay, so let's have a look at tactic number 3. All right, so here again we've had the French, and I've just moved my rook across to c8, defending this knight from that bishop. Okay. Now white captures with the pawn on e5, and I capture back with the knight. Okay, now here, look at this knight. This knight is the only defender of this pawn currently, and it's the only defender of this pawn, right? So now when f takes e5, it seems like a mistake to capture with a knight, right? I could have just captured with the pawn, but why did I capture with a knight? Okay, I'm actually trying to tempt white into his next move, which was knight takes d4. Okay, and I'm happy about that. Why am I happy about that? Because you have to look at this dark square diagonal, right? That now allows me, so currently I'm actually down a minor piece in this game, okay? Allows me to capture on c5 with my bishop, thereby pinning the knight against the king. Now, important stuff. The knight's on a dark square, so this bishop can't help, right? This knight cannot come to the defense of the knight. The only piece that can defend the knight is this rook by moving to d1, okay? But if the rook moves to d1, either of my rooks can move to d8, and I have another attacker. So the knight is still mine. This rook can't defend, this knight can't defend, this bishop can't defend. So what he does here is he blocks with the bishop with check. Now my opponent here played very, very well, and he's only just rated under 1100. Okay, I move my king back here, and now he moves this rook across to defend the knight. Now, what I decide to do is move my rook to d8 and attack the bishop. Okay, and it looks as though I'm going to have a barrage. As soon as that bishop moves, I've got 2 attackers against the knight, so surely I'm going to win the knight. Not so quick. Again, when you are under attack, look for counter threats, and a check is a great counter threat. Bishop to e4, check. And now, it seems to me that I can play f5, right? And attack the bishop. So now I'm attacking the bishop, now I'm attacking the knight twice. Surely I'm going to recapture my minor piece here. Surely I am, right? But what did I miss in this situation? Okay. Yes, the knight is in an absolute pin, and no, the knight cannot move. However, the knight is still defending f5. Yeah, king cannot capture because it would be in check. Even though the knight can't take it, it would still be in check. And this comes with a fork on my king and the rook. What a disaster. What should I have played here? Maybe even just like retreat the king to here, and if he wants to check me again, now I capture it, you know? That would have been absolutely fine. This, just a blunder. Okay, next one. This is a beauty. This is an absolute beauty. Okay, so we're looking at combinations. We're looking at increasing the depth of our tactical vision, right? So, black to play. White has just captured the pawn on f3 with their rook. Black is currently a pawn up. This guy in the middle of the board. Everything's going to open, but material is more or less equal. So, but black here actually has a winning combination. And one of the issues is that the rook has come off the back rank and disconnected the 2 rooks. Now, can you see the combo? Right. So the first thing that I play is rook to d8. Okay. Now, what I'm thinking is I'm getting ready to move my knight. And that would come with a discovered attack on this queen here, right? But I'm also then attacking this knight. Now, the knight is defended twice. Okay, so let's actually play it through. So my opponent plays well. So my opponent actually spots that there is a threat here, okay? And here it is. Knight to there, queen's under attack. And the queen's going to have to move, right? Queen, I guess, could come here, which is defended by the bishop, but if the knight goes there and the queen has to move, right? Then I've got the idea of maybe knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, and the rook here cannot actually recapture because of queen e1, okay? And the rook's on here, king's in check, rook has to block the check, and then queen takes the knight, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, well, let's walk it through, okay? Now, my opponent here thinks that knight could be a weakness, so drops the queen back to f4, but I then calculate, so yeah, I take he took 3 minutes 20 on that move. I also think for another minute 20 on my move and decide that I can proceed with the plan. And check this out. So knight to e4, and the queen is under attack from the rook, okay? So the queen's got to do something, and now can't go here, because that's covered by knight and my queen, and can't go here because it's covered by the pawn. So the queen now has to move across onto the light square. Knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, okay? And now, actually, the rook cannot capture. Because if rook captures, queen e1, check, right? Rook has to block, I get the rook, and a winning position. So we have a trade of rooks, but it's still same problem, too little too late now. And the rook can't take the bishop. White's going to be down a whole bishop and a pawn, and white here resigns. All right, 5th and final tactic of the day. Okay, so here I actually have the white pieces, and my opponent has played the French. And we have the Tarrasch line, and he's played now king to g7. So how would you read this board? He's got 6 pawns for white. We've got 3 pawn islands for black. So black is a pawn down. Black has the bishop pair. I've got a knight and a bishop. Okay, now I now play queen to g4, and there is a bit of a threat here. Okay, now can you see a tactic for white that could possibly win a pawn? Okay. Now, can you see a tactic for white that could not only win a pawn, but also really break open black's king safety? Okay. So here's the issue. Now we have a queen and a bishop looking at this pawn on g6. Now, here I could play queen takes pawn. Okay, and you say, no, that looks absolutely stupid, right? But the king can't recapture. And if pawn recaptures, or even, I could play bishop takes, for example. Okay, king can't capture because he'd be in check, and the pawn can't capture because what else is this pawn guarding? Yeah, it's guarding g6, but it's also guarding e6. And what's looking at e6? Look at this guy, right? Let's say bishop takes, pawn takes, knight e6, family fork, king, queen, and rook all in one go. Three things all in one go. Okay, and the queen would be lost. So my opponent has to do something, has to get rid of the knight. So my opponent now eliminates the knight. I grab the pawn, rook comes up. Now I attack with my f pawn. Okay, my king is safe. I have a pawn in front of a rook. Let's use it. We have to come after this, have to open up the position. Right? Now we have queen in there looking at this undefended pawn. Right? What do? Ignore the threat. f5. Okay? Rook comes down to attack my queen. We still have queen looking at this, which also does come with check, by the way. Just drop the queen back. Okay? Queen comes there with check. Not a problem. Rook, king h1. Now, rook to here, but what has black done and what has black missed? Right? With this rook lift, okay? Disconnected his 2 rooks, and what he missed with this move was suddenly the queen has her eye on the b8 rook. Queen takes there, king moves, rook there, queen takes rook. Simple blunder. But nice little tactic, nice little bit of calculation in there. So, what are we saying? At what point in your chess development do you look for tactical combinations? Well, anytime, The point is that it's not when do you start doing this, it's like when you start doing this, your chess gets better. Simple as that, really. So, what should you be doing? Well, I would just start with puzzles. Chess.com's got, 150,000 puzzles on there or something? Just do puzzles. Do a few puzzles every day. It will develop. And what you have to remember is as well, the information is there on the board here. Okay? So here, right, with this threat, let's say, black plays something just kind of normal, okay? And now I capture here. Pawn captures. You can see the problem, right? So the pawn can't capture. Now, the question is, can you figure this out, right? And the answer is yes, you can, if you bother to figure it out. It's not that, there's no more information on the board when a grandmaster's playing a game than when you or I are playing a game, right? The information is there. It's there to be figured out. But you have to have the wherewithal, you have to have the boldness to say, okay, well, what if? What if I take that? Okay? And one of the things is that, a lot of this stuff comes with experience of playing games. So I know that this is like a long knight, okay? A long knight move. When you have 2 pieces, that are in this arrangement, they are forkable by a knight. I love my knight forks. Yeah. So I know that these are in a forkable position, and I have my knight ready to jump onto the square where it could fork both. What is preventing my knight from jumping in there? Only this pawn. Can I eliminate that pawn? Or what if bishop takes that? Right? So let's say, for example, bishop takes that, and black decides not to capture the bishop. Now I can capture the pawn. Now, oh, and it comes to check. Right? So, yeah. So I guess king has to capture the bishop there. So maybe that one doesn't work in particular. But then I have queen here, and the king's not got many moves either. And material's equal. But yeah, all of this can be figured out. And this is what puzzles teach you. You know, puzzles is your way to practice very, very, in a very convenient way, to practice deepening your tactical visibility, right? And it's as easy as that. So in this instance, I think if he doesn't take, I mean, obviously, if he takes, he's losing. So if he doesn't take and just plays something random, probably a better move, which we've seen before. Okay, discovered check wins the rook. That's pretty straightforward. All good. Yeah. So that's it. So I would encourage you, you've got to exercise your tactical muscles. It's as simple as that. You know, don't hold yourself back by waiting for some kind of inspiration to come. The experience will come over time. The familiarity with different patterns, like we said, this arrangement of pieces, that kind of stuff will come with practice. But practice doing it. Play long enough time control so that you can actually figure this stuff out. If you're playing 5-minute blitz, then you might as well forget it. You're never going to exercise and stretch your ability playing 5-minute blitz games or 3-minute blitz games as you could if you're playing 15 plus 10 or half an hour or 60-minute rapids. You just haven't got time to figure it out, right? And you need to be training. You need to be training that tactical awareness. That's just it. That's just the way it is. So the more you do that, the quicker your chess will improve. Hands down. I've got nothing else to add on that one. Just want to say thank you for watching. Appreciate your support, and I'll see you soon.